everyone asks us, and we're going to do it right now, but everybody says, how long will it take, right? Does everybody want to know how long it might take to do a deal? Yes? 3 people, good so far. How many else want to know?
Steve's done deals. He still wants to know how long it takes.
I say that because I think it's just a reframe sometimes. We beat on ourselves. We all do. The community tends to be very aggressive. That we're all hard drivers, so we beat on ourselves. We don't get a deal in 3 months. We heard Rick got this deal that you're going to hear about. We beat on ourselves. Nothing to do with it. It has to do with reframing that and being okay with what Zach said this morning. Maybe it is a year. We have story after story after story of people who just hung on long enough to get to those 6-figure deals. So just reframe it. Be okay with it. That's all.
3 feet from gold. I've seen too many people leave when they're right on the cusp of getting a deal. But you guys didn't. You didn't. So maybe we'll start with Rick and then just go down, because I just love to know, so everyone can get to know you, who you are, what you do full-time, and why did you decide to join the Wicked Smart community? I think if just briefly there, and then we'll dive into some deals and we'll hit some...
In full disclosure, so the audience knows, when we have to jump in, they don't take it personally, because he said briefly for a reason. Go ahead.
Welcome to New England.
So for over the past 30 years, I've been in the defense industry, engineering manager, project manager. So looking at retirement coming down the road, I just didn't see a future there. And it was the nervousness and anxiety of not having an income. And real estate is the way to go, really, no matter what. Because if you look at anybody who's got some serious money, they somehow have a tie with real estate. So, and then I saw this program and haven't stopped.
And what level are you, Rick?
I-6.
I know you might find this hard to believe, but people have in the audience spent money on programs and had no success. We hear it weekly. So you had tried other stuff, other programs throughout the years.
Right, yes I did.
Okay,
And
we'll come into that.
I want you to go to Morris. Same question for each of you.
Morris Sutton. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I joined this group about a year ago. I do this full-time. I've been doing real estate full-time. Before this, I was trying wholesaling real estate. That didn't go very well. So I've been, like I said, in the community for a year. I couldn't be happier. And why did I join? I don't know if anybody's familiar with wholesaling, but there's a lot of things about this creative financing that's just so much better than wholesaling. So it was, I had heard about it, I watched some of the videos of Chris, and I jumped in, and like I said, I couldn't be happier.
Before we do their deals, I got each one of you have a story kind of things we've worked out, so we'll come back to it. Go ahead, Jose.
My name is Jose, and I've been part of the team for over 15 months. Okay. Prior to that, I did a lot of courses, like Chris was saying. I spent a lot of money in courses. Okay, but this is the one that I could say that truly did it for me. It worked for me, and I'm retired military, 28 years Air Force. Okay. I was telling Steve this morning, it took 17 years for me to figure out that I could shave, because the military mindset is that, you shave every day, that's it, okay? It took me 17 years after I retired in 2004 from the military. I did 17 years as a defense contractor like Rick here, okay? But it took me that long to figure out I don't have to shave anymore, okay?
So if it's 17 years to your first deal, you're good with it.
Yeah.
All right.
So Chris did say, give yourself 3 years. It took me 15 months. And then, who would ever think that I could do one right after the other? You see, so.
Good job.
Yeah.
So
Exponential. No, you just hold on to it.
that's it, okay. That's it. That's all I have to say.
I want to go back to Morris for a second because I mentioned him earlier. I'm going to do a quick story and then we'll dive into some deals.
Yeah.
So Morris, like so many other associates here, I don't know what the theme is, but the theme was you went away and we had to complete the deal for you, or at least do a segment of it. I think that there's people that never met us. They don't understand that, how we operate in that respect. You just share what happened and any ahas. I want to come from you.
Yeah, this was a wild story with this deal. The seller was a little, eccentric, and I had planned a trip to Israel, and of course, I was talking to the seller for I would think a month at the time, a month and a half, and looked like we were going to do a deal. We had an issue, as Chris mentioned, with the attorney, and Laura, who's in the back, I have to see her, but Laura helped save the deal. But I was going to Israel, and I was so nervous because the deal wasn't complete, it wasn't done. And I told Chris, I said, what's going to happen? I'm going to be away for the week. He says, we got you. I said, what do you mean? He says, we're partners, so I'll take care of it. So I said, he said that, and I didn't really believe him because he's a little busy, so I didn't think he would be worrying about my deal. And sure enough, Israel is 7 hours ahead, so it's very hard to communicate and back and forth. And I got back, and the deal was signed. So, and that was all because of Chris and Laura's help. So when these guys say that it's a community and it's a partnership, they really mean it. And I'm living proof of it. These guys are really unbelievable. And they really hold your hand every step of the way. So that's a phenomenal group. Coaches are unbelievable. It's just, you guys are lucky that you're here.
Well, that's just one story that we could probably name with all of our coaches that have finished out deals, because that's what we do. Awesome. No, great. I love it. All right. Why don't we shift gears here? You guys want to look at some deals, right? Let's see how these deals came across. But while I'm getting things together, why don't you, I'm curious, Rick, what was the biggest challenge with completing your first deal? So picture, most people in the audience here, well, let me get a raised hand. How many people have done a deal, have 0 deals, so no real estate experience? Okay, so that's everyone. So Rick, if you could tell them, in hindsight right now, as we're going to dive into your deal in just a second, in hindsight, what was the biggest challenge? What's the stumbling block? What could they see right now to say, hey, if I just missed that landmine, I would have got a deal a little bit more quickly?
One of the things was not filing the notice of option. Well, I had a very short time frame.
Oh, we're going to talk about that on losing money.
Early enough, because what happens is you got to file that notice of option as soon as you know you have a buyer. This happened to be a lease purchase. So we accepted the buyer the 20th of August, and then the signing was the 29th. So I had to get over to the county registry of deeds and get it filed. But what happened was their attorney picked it up, the buyer's attorney, and said, well, Rick has no right to sell this property or to do a lease purchase with the property. Luckily, Laura stepped in. She's been wonderful. She got the sellers or the buyer's attorney to realize, that I did have the right, and all we had to do is get that thing filed with the recorded. But yeah, that was my biggest challenge.
By the way, this is interesting because when Rick called me, it doesn't happen to Zach and I and Nick, but maybe every 20 deals. The reason this happened, i.e. the attorney being concerned for their own buyer, is they were putting $100,000 down. So rightfully so, their attorney was trying to protect it. That does not come up a lot, so this is a great thing for you to hear. It's an anomaly, but it could happen to you, for sure.
I'd like to ask the same thing to Jose before we jump back to Rick's deal.
I think the biggest...
Microphone, Jose. Okay. Don't jump the gun. Oh, go ahead.
I think the biggest aha was what you say about metrics, how important it is to look at your metrics. I started measuring those metrics on a month-to-month back in May, and it floated. My numbers were 200-300 a month, May, June, and July. In August, I had that 50-second drill or 50-minute drill that you do. In August, I shot that up to over 800 in a month.
that begs that we explain what the 50-minute drill is, 'cause we're not doing push-ups.
Well, also,
Yeah.
we could be, but also you're talking about 200 or 300 dials per week. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden it
correct.
shot up
Correct.
once we incorporated
Correct.
this technique. So
Correct.
So, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, it wasn't like it was new. We've done this. We just kind of went back to basics with the community, and one of them was something that I did way back when I was a realtor in the 90s, which was simple 50-minute sprints. So if you have 2 hours of calling time you have set aside, it might seem daunting, but if you do 50 minutes of a sprint and outgoing calls only, take a 10-minute break, and then do that again, the call, and you'll hear it throughout the day, the call output was tremendous, because what else we told him to do was nothing else during that time. If I call Rick as a seller during my first 5 minutes and he calls me back, I'm not picking that call up. It's 50 minutes of outgoing calls only, and the numbers go through the roof. It's just time blocking, but it's a neat technique that the community's running with now.
So by using that technique, my numbers went up, and a month later, had 2 deals, one back to back. I've been looking for that one deal. I always like to hear everybody's story, how long it took them to get their first deal. And in this room, those that are coaches now have been very instrumental in giving me that information. And I see that it took me 15, but that's just half the story, because then the other half of the business is the sales, working with people like Nick. Then once you do get a deal, that's the rest of the story.
In context, he runs his own business too outside of this.
Right, I
Home
do
inspection.
have a home inspection business with my brother, so I'm in the process of driving both businesses to success and real estate. I'm fully retired now, so I've already escaped. I'm doing what I love to do.
And you don't have to shave, that's awesome.
Right.
well, interesting, because the biggest challenge or one of the challenges that people always say are, well, I don't think I have enough time to do real estate now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So helping people with W-2s, looking for retirement, or Jose looking to build a business to complement his other business.
Right.
We can show you exactly how to schedule that, as we run, 3 or 4 businesses at a time at any given time. So love it.
Did we do Morris? Same question, or did we already do that?
Morris, well, why don't we ask you the same question?
So challenge, the challenge that I had, Chris mentioned it before, I mentioned it a little bit before also. We went through, I think, 3 attorneys before we found Laura and was able to do the deal. I was actually working on another deal at the same time in Pennsylvania, and that deal fell through because of the attorney, strictly because of my attorney that wouldn't come through. If I had Laura at the time, I would have 2 deals now, but so that was my big challenge. And it was, like Chris said, well, while I was in Israel, he found Laura. So again, I should take vacations more often.
Yes.
Solved. Problem solved. I love it. So the first thing then which you come across when you start your business is trying to get from 0 to 1. So that's why we wanted to bring them up here today, because there's certain fears that come along with 0 to 1, and me and Bob, who's sitting there, talked about that this morning briefly. Fear of getting over the phone, fear of communicating with sellers, getting the fear of failure out of your mind, because Jose could have easily said, I haven't done a deal in a year, and then he would have missed out because 3 months later he got 2 deals in the back-to-back weeks if it wasn't the same week. So let's look at
Thanks, buddy.
one of the deals here. So Rick, why don't we dive into the deal? How many of you have watched any of our Deal Structure Sunday videos? So we get a pretty good idea of what and I know when the camera shines over here, what the main things that I'm putting out here. Is anybody confused on what the 3 paydays are?
We can
Before I
explain it,
dive
don't
in.
feel bad. If you don't know, raise your hand, we'll go through a little explain on the 3 paydays. Do we know what it is?
So we got 2 honest people in the room. I love it. 3.
Third one's a little confusing.
Oh, don't worry,
Okay.
we'll keep it simple for you, Bob, I promise. So 3 paydays. Payday number 1, non-refundable deposit, goes into Hip National Bank. That could be whoever's Hip National Bank it is. Payday 2, cash flow or spread. The difference between what you got to pay the seller or the bank and what you're collecting. And payday 3 is the equity you're creating in the deal. It comes in 2 ways: principal paydown, and also if there's any premium left over in it. So the difference between what you bought it for and what you sold it for. So just think of it as your equity. At the end of the day, that's what you get in the back end.
Yeah, if you guys want to master the 3 paydays, the only way to do it, is to go through YouTube over and over again. We tell these high 6 people right here in front, make it a habit to be on YouTube. Make it a habit to be in QLS. Make it a habit to be in Linda. It's a resource center just for them. But just stay on this stuff until it's just boring and you know exactly what's going to come out next. That's how you get it.
Yeah, don't feel bad. It took me probably a year to start figuring out how to actually structure deals. Just keep failing forward. All right, Rick, let's talk about your deal. I know everybody's seen this check that's inside the community, so let's break it down.
Well, maybe they haven't.
Yeah?
As far as what he got, I guess we'll do it.
Well, it's a surprise then. Let's do a surprise. All right, Rick, so tell us where you, what's the lead source?
Lead source was My Plus Leads. My BA, Angela, is actually the one that called initially.
For sale by owner,
It was a
expire?
For sale by owner.
For sale by owner. Awesome,
Yeah.
okay. And what's the motivation of the seller?
It was a brand new construction, just finished it recently. He put it on the market. My thoughts was location. It was right behind the trailer, it was right next to a trailer park.
Okay,
It was on a main road,
yeah.
but like Chris said, what the forest becomes the ocean when you're doing terms.
Close. But this is important for them to hear because the biggest concern for you guys and new people, well, if it didn't sell for a year, 2 years, 6 months, how come we can sell it? It comes up all the time. Because the buyer pool that I mentioned this morning.
Okay, for sale by owner, brand new construction. I guess the first thing I was like, brand new construction? You can buy brand new construction through creative financing? No money down? You'd be crazy. All right, what's the purchase price on the property?
$625,000.
625. Okay, is there a mortgage on the property?
There, 348,822 is the mortgage.
By the way,
Balance.
sometimes the numbers are off. With Rick, I guarantee you it's to the penny.
Well, and
To back in the back of the room.
all of these, they'll be on Deal Structure Sunday. So if you want to revisit them, and there may be a dollar change, but we're going to utilize our time here. So we'll go quickly through it. So if it's off by $5, $10, it is what it is. I mean, we're not going to complain to Rick. All right, so what's the monthly payment on the property?
Monthly payment was $25.32, $25.73.
All in, PITI?
Yes.
All in. What's the principal? What's the P?
Principal was $577.
Okay, 577. Awesome. Before we dive further, what type of structure is this?
This is a sandwich.
Sandwich lease option? All right. All right, so important, just because Bob brought it up, important. The 577 is important because of this. Because the way in which we structure our lease purchase deals are we lock in a very specific amount of equity with the seller, so the difference between 625 and 348, and if you're utilizing all of our agreements, on or before the end date, we're going to pay off the remaining balance of the mortgage and give the seller the equity. This means that this 577, every single month that Rick pays it, gets the benefit of principal paydown. That's how you utilize a sandwich lease option, so that way you can benefit from principal paydown, meaning building in equity into a deal that you don't even own. Awesome. Sold. What are we going and tell us about the buyer first before everyone starts salivating from the
Well,
amount of money you made from this
So
deal.
it was a 60-month term.
60-month term. Awesome.
Went through net processing with Nathan. Awesome system.
We'll explain that
Yep.
later, how the processing company works for all of you that don't know that.
So I had, a lot of people looking to rent, but then all of a sudden, a woman called me. Turns out she's 18 years old. Her boyfriend, I think, was 22 or 23. They own a paving company, and she said she'd like to put down $125,000, I think it was.
Started.
Yeah.
Nick
Which-
might know better than us as he worked it.
Yeah.
Or it was 150.
Might want to give Nick a mic during these talks anyway. if we can
Yeah,
get Nick a
Nick
mic.
said that he'd start with 150,000.
Yeah, it might have been 150.
That's right, roundabout.
But, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just hang on to it, Nick, in case we need you.
All right, so then you start diving into conversations, and you didn't get 150. and everybody's going to cry because of how much you got. It was a lot less than that, but it was really good. Go ahead. Tell me, what did we sell this property for?
679.9.
679.9. All right. So you're like, all right, I'll take 150,000. But then I think there was a conversation with an attorney. Then that got pushed down a little bit. And then what did they end up coming to the table with you for your payday one or your non-refundable deposit?
They came to the table with 90,000 plus the first month's rent of 3150. First month's lease payment of 3150.
Unless I missed it, what was that on for as a FSBO? Was it the exact price you tied it up for? I forget.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
About 90, I'm just going to write 93,000. Okay. All right. Chris, maybe talk about first month's rent.
Yeah. So in our agreements, because we lived and learned without it, it's specifically already pre-printed. You don't have to change or worry about anything. It says that in a sandwich lease, Rick's first payment commitment is 30 days after his tenant buyer takes occupancy. So the tenant buyer took occupancy when?
September 1st.
September 1st. So his first mortgage payment is October 1, but he captured September from the buyer, tenant buyer. That goes right in his pocket. That does not go towards deposit. The 90 goes towards deposit. The other one's just free cash flow. Somewhere around 2015 or 16, I won't take credit for it. A friend of mine gave me that idea, and we've ran with it since. And that'll get you $1,000 or $2,000 on every deal for the rest of your life.
Yeah, what did you end up, so you're paying $25.73. What did you end up renting the property for? What's the monthly payment?
3150.
Boo.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
What was it?
3150, and that's with taxes included.
All right, $31.50. All right, payday two. So let's talk about what you get for a spread each month. What's the number?
So the spread was, it's the payment from the monthly
Rick,
cash
should I look
flow.
over your shoulder?
No.
You can be
The monthly cash flow is 577.
Times 60 months, we go full term. What's the payday two?
34,620.
All right. All right. So now we got principal pay down on this.
Yeah, the principal pay down, principal was 591.
Oh, $591.
Yeah,
Yeah, we almost lost $20 a month.
yeah, can't do that.
All right, times 60. So payday three, we're calculating the principal pay down right now for 60 months. What's the principal pay down?
Principal pay down is 35,460.
Okay. You already collected all your premium up front, right?
Well, so I want to say something about that, Zach. This is important.
Please.
I'll do it quick. So the reason we weren't stressed, well, Rick might have been, when we had to lower the deposit that the kids were willing to pay down to that to kind of make the attorney happy, long story short. The reason we didn't care is before this deal, we said, well, if we take 125, we're going to have to put about 30 of that in the bank. I'm just using round numbers, and we can talk about it later, because it would have possibly, if it got cashed out early, been more than all those 3 paydays. So you don't spend it, it's not yours. So we were going to put some in the bank anyway, and so when the kids lowered it, they felt like they won a little bit, and the attorney got a little wiggle room, and she felt like she won, and we got a whopping 90 still.
Beautiful.
Backstory.
Okay. All right. So we collected $90,000 up front for our payday one. We got $34,000 of principal pay down. You got, or I'm sorry, in cash flow, you got $35,000 in principal pay down. We already collected majority of the premium, so tell me the total of the deal.
The total payday 3?
Total payday, total deal in general.
Total deal was 128,130, all 3 paydays.
Sweet.
Nice. So we're talking about the 0 to 1 journey. How long did it take you to do this deal?
Total from the day I started, about 15 months.
15 months. We got 15 months up here.
Interesting little side note. I just looked at this group and said, okay, neither one of these guys were high 6 until this past April, because I literally was on vacation, just reached out and said, you guys are killing it, let's move you to the next level, and they said, I'm in, I'm committed, to Dan's point this morning. They didn't have to, they could have said, I'm good, because he was already immersion.
Yeah. Love it. So out of curiosity, from joining High 6 to the deal, what's that timeline look like?
is it 4 months, 3
Okay.
months? Yeah.
So you built your foundation, jumped in high six, nailed the deal. As I said earlier, whatever it took you 12, 15 months to do your first deal, I mean, how many of you would wait 15 months to do a $128,000 deal? I mean, for those of you that aren't raising your hand, I'm a bit skeptical, I'm not gonna lie.
I think, part of the delay was dipping my feet in. I started with the QLS, the 90-day jumpstart, and then to starter, and then to immersion.
You took the whole journey,
Oh, I
huh?
forgot that.
I did.
Talk about Mr. Analytical.
But I'll tell you, Steve Murnick has been incredible since the get-go. He was the first coach I started working with, and
Love it.
all the coaches.
So it begs the difference. I gotta ask this one question then. So what was the difference between the first X amount of your time and then the last 4 months? What was the difference? Because it sounds like you completely shifted.
The difference was with the metrics and from the office visit that we had, looking at my numbers and making a few adjustments. That's all it was. It just made a big difference. Plus the nightly accountability with you, Chris.